Welcome to Unity Spiritual Center, Pflugerville, as I would call it. Today we're going to talk about the first Unity principle. And actually I'm planning on doing a series of the 5 principles. And I've really been thinking, how do we get ourselves understanding the spiritual ideas that we're discussing? And then how do we motivate ourselves to do the work? And so we're going to go back and do the work. And I've really been looking at, in my own life, what has held me back at certain times. What is happening when I wake up and say, it ain't working? Anybody familiar with that moment? It's kind of like, oh my God. And there are very definite reasons. Spiritual law is very succinct, very clear. You do it or you don't do it. So we're going to work with that. And the first principle is, and Madeline, now you're going to have to go past that one. Yes, we're going to do that one. Okay. So these are the unity principles. Number 1, there's only one presence and one power, active, which means is active, completely active, as the universe and as my life, God the good. Now, if you extrapolate that and understand, that means all there is God. There isn't anything else. I'm going to say it again. All there is God. There isn't anything else. Which is beyond human comprehension. Now, I want you to look around. You can see Terry and Marty and Valerie and Serene. And we're all separate entities. So for us, the world is separated into form. Anybody, look at the chairs. We got chairs. We got RJ standing back there. Everybody's separate. Okay? But if you understand that, this is saying that there's one power, one presence, and everybody is part of that presence. So that chair is an energy of God. And that is beyond our comprehension. As a matter of fact, it sounds crazy. Okay? And once I really started looking at that, I started thinking, how can the average individual incorporate the idea overnight that I am part of God? And do you understand that? Understand what we're asking ourselves to do. And anybody agree once in a while it becomes overwhelming? Because there's so much stuff out there. All I need to do is watch TV. So we have this developed, we grow up in an environment that everything is separate, everything is out there, and I have to figure out how to get my part of it, okay? And I have to be careful that I don't upset anybody. I was going to use another term, but I'm not going to do that. So it's an interesting concept. All there is God. And I'm calling that the first step in the spiritual path. Okay? Why would that be the first step in the spiritual path? Interesting idea. Okay? What reaction did you have when I asked that question? I want somebody to talk to me.
My brain just said it's the basis of everything. Nothing else makes sense if that's not true.
Yeah. Nothing else makes sense if that's not true. You know, is it an orderly universe I live in? Is there a plan? And everything that looks like in the universe, it's all in a plan. The Earth keeps going around the sun, exactly the same. As far as we know, the solar system goes through space, exactly the same. We can even measure. Do you know that the solar system moves through the galaxy every 26,000 years approximately? And there's 4 different times. By the way, we're now going into the golden age, 25,000 years. Okay? So it's all orderly. And nothing makes sense unless you say that everything in the universe operates the same way. Thank you. Anybody else? Do you see how the normal human being, we are trained not to believe? Okay? Matter of fact, science says it can't be. What's interesting now, and I will talk a little bit about quantum physics, but quantum physics is now proving these ideas. Okay? So the biggest step in this whole process is accepting number one. Now, to me, believing it is hard as a human being. Okay? Now, it is, if I really stop and think about it, but the humanness does not stop and think about those things. I'm so busy getting by, keeping everybody happy in all their separate entities. Trying to take, anybody familiar with taking care of people? And we're going through the tragedies of life. Okay? And we are here to experience those things and work with them, right? So, starting with the basis that there's only one presence and one power is a unique idea, and if you stop and think about it, what Serene just said, nothing else makes sense unless that's true. However, we have to accept that. Now, anybody familiar with the word choice? The whole thing is all based on choice. I can do this or that. I can do that or this. But I can talk about what if this and what if that, and if this, then that. Now understand they are all comparisons. We walk through life, if this, then that. Okay, and what happens if this happens and that might happen? So we're looking at all these contrasts, like that says all there is God. So is there any contrast through different forms? No. However, that's a huge thing to accept. And it's like, oh, okay, I give up. Now, that's not something that I can incorporate overnight. And I'm trying to be honest in this. As a matter of fact, we're still dealing with, no matter what level we're at, we're still dealing with what we call consciousness, which is the understanding of that spiritual knowledge that all there is God. Because usually there's something that distracts me. In other words, somebody cuts me off, I get real angry, and that's not God. And we're in that conversation. I hope she doesn't mind it. Serene just went home because her mother passed, okay? Now, we have a ritual. We have all kinds of rituals through death. However, is death part of life? Yeah. And so, how do I associate with that? Okay, and the truth is, would you agree if somebody lives life and goes on to the next life, that's a celebration? It really is. Because they have lived life and now they're into the next level. If you believe that, by the way. And how do I feel? I feel sad. However, I know that only good is occurring. See, if I make it a tragedy, what happens? There's all this negative energy that is poured out around it. So thank you for that. And thank you for bringing that to us. Because we all, see, whether we like it or not, we're all part of the same thing. So what happens with Terry happens with Grace and involves Madeline. Okay? So again, right back. You see the first step? And it's really, really, really something I have to reinforce every day. Because there's always something that happens that I have to blame something else. And then I go into if this and that, and then I go into contrasts, and then I come up with a story. Anybody familiar with stories? This happened because. And then I make up how I should feel out of that story that I have concocted. Okay? And yet if I go back to this basic concept, all there is God, there isn't anything else. It's a false idea. Okay? Now, I'm trying to be rational. You have to be rational. Now, the key to it is, okay, what is the value of living a spiritual life? Okay, and it's interesting. Galatians, I did it again. Where did I put my glasses? There they are. What I enjoy is going back. At the time, I wasn't very happy about my fundamentalist background. But now, what happens to me is I had to memorize verses, and I don't remember where they are, but I remember phrases from verses that I had to memorize as a child. And so, I found that we have a wonderful thing called Google, and all I have to do is Google that phrase and it comes up. So then I know where it is. And this one took me a while, but Galatians, which is Paul, okay, and it's in here somewhere, wherever it is. Galatians, there it is. Galatians 5:22. And this is Paul, okay? And he was saying, he's saying earlier that the flesh craves that which is harmful to the spirit, and the spirit opposes those things of the flesh. So let's bring that into today's world. Spiritual things are energy, frequency, okay, and energy. Okay? So those are the things that work together as what we call spiritual. Spiritual are things beyond the physical, beyond the understanding. Okay? And the key to it is we are a physical entity within a material body. And so it's a spiritual, it's energy that runs us. So energy is totally different. People like RJ get used to working with energy. But do you understand what's happening right now? Right now I'm talking. This microphone is picking that up. It's putting through a loudspeaker over there without any wires. And it's going over how many miles? Hundreds of miles. Thousands of miles. All over, it could go all over the world. Okay? That's crazy. Does that make any sense at all to a rational mind? No. Okay, however, everything we speak, everything we think is energy, and it makes a difference in the spiritual world. And so, what is the benefit of a living spiritual life? The spiritual life is, we're going to talk about that. But anyway, Paul says, but the fruits of the Spirit are love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, goodness, faith, meekness, self-control. Oh my God. Yes, there is no law against these. And those who belong to the Christ mind I'm editing have controlled their weaknesses and their passions. So, would you like to be in a position where you just live without any of these entities or ideas coming in? That's the benefit. And Paul says that. Now, this is 2,000 years ago. But scientists are now saying, when I think a certain way, I change the outcomes. Now, one reason I was asking earlier about the videos, I have a video where quantum physicists are showing when they fire atoms at something, the way they change the effect at a quantum level of the atoms change when they're observed by a human being. And if the human being isn't there, so it hits the target differently. Do you understand what that means? That means we as humans affect the energy around us. Hello. So what we're doing is, we are crazy. Because stop and think about it. That word just came. It was like, what are we? Well, we've been trained to be nuts. We've been trained to not hit the target. We've been trained to live life the way we want to. Okay? And it's interesting to me And if you go throughout history, if you look at an athlete to be good at what they do, they practice, yes. Any thing that becomes important, I have to learn it by doing. We go to school to do what? To learn good habits. Okay, we know that if somebody learns good habits produce good things. However, we don't extrapolate that into what we are as a human being, and the benefits or the outcome of a spiritual life are the fruits of the Spirit. Okay? So, first step is what? There's only one power, one presence in the universe. And that is, I learned to operate and believe that that's a possibility. And my job then is to learn new habits of how to incorporate that into my life. And how do I do that? See, that's the next step. But in other words, I have to accept that that's a reality, and things that happen to me are not random. In other words, it's not somebody out there throwing darts at me, or my next door neighbor doesn't hate me. None of those things are true. I am the master of my fate, which is the famous poem. Okay? Because of what I've thought, the things that I have developed in my life. And today, we're still dealing with that. Okay? Why am I experiencing health issues at this point? We're right back to that conversation. And it's within my capability of turning that over. In other words, this is interesting, Randy. I don't know where you are on this, but healing occurs from the spiritual energy, not the healing. Okay? Now they can, and we can increase the energy, and the healing occurs. Okay? Now, I don't know why I went from that. Let me get back over here. Somebody has something to say. Okay. What we're dealing with is lack of belief in that basic idea. Because the world around us keeps telling us, and I don't know about you, but this week has been a very difficult one politically. Yes? Oh my God, what's going to happen? And the whole world is looking at us. And the Father within, He doeth the work. It's right back to the kingdom of heaven is within. Okay? Now, there's another Bible verse. Can you go to that? No.
The other way?
Yeah. The other way.
I don't know which way to go.
No, you had it. Go. There you go. There is one God, the Father, from whom all things came and for whom they live. Okay? Now there are 2 or 3 different Bible verses that share this, and it's one God. Okay? Now, if we believe that something else outside of ourselves has created a problem, have we created another God? Have we made our next door neighbor our God? Have we made our spouse our God? Who do we blame for the things in our life? Other than the Father within who doeth the work. So do you see how the world's thinking slips in, and I get stuck? I always have to have somebody to blame. Madeline did it to me. And it's usually the closest family members that we correct that issue, okay? So there is only one. For behold, the kingdom of God is within you. Okay, which is a big message, huge message, which is one of the messages we taught. You said we have put messages in. Okay. And that's number one. We're going back to there's only one power and presence in the universe. And on a daily, momentary basis, that has to be our belief. Anybody have any feeling about that? I'm aware that's what I forget. Okay, and I've had to bring that into my life and admit that. Because, you know, it's easy to quickly blame somebody else for being quiet.
I'm going to talk about the Course in Miracles that I studied for years, and all it ever talked about is that we're crazy.
Anybody else in
I'm going to talk about baseball. So, my son, when he played Little League, and they went to the state tournament, we started a We Believe. That was our chant, and that's all it took. We even printed it on T-shirts, on the back of T-shirts. So they would get behind, and they would, you know, they were 12 years old, and we would like, we believe. And everybody, when they started thinking, we believe, suddenly they could hit the ball, and they could, you know, not hit the ball when they needed to. You know, it's all in we believe. You let all the other stuff go and remind yourself that we believe. So it's even in baseball.
Course in Miracles, baseball, anything else? Valerie?
It's really interesting because, like, when I think of the dynamics around that, about letting go of fear and letting go of doubt and just opening the channel for good, like, we create we create in and around ourselves so many roadblocks and so many barriers to our good. Like, our good is constantly flowing to us, and yet we're the ones that get in the way by our thinking.
We create the roadblocks. How do we create the roadblocks?
Through a training.
Resistance.
Okay, and the next step is, she was talking about getting a group of people to think a certain thing. Madeline was talking about Course in Miracles saying we're crazy in our thinking. So thought is the issue. And for years, I was critical. My family never did buy into this crazy stuff. But if you understand, the thought that we creates the outcomes. Because what it does is, we can't see it, but it's just the energies. Okay? And what our thinking then creates the outcome. Now, it's not a one-for-one kind of thing. In other words, if I'm thinking about that chair, I'm not going to become a chair. But it's going to influence the general energy around me that creates what I want to experience, what I've chosen. And we're right back here that all there is God. So I am God, you are God, creating what God wants. And we've been trained in a crazy way to create what we really don't want by worrying. Because we've been trained to worry, right? I still remember, Madeline, this is a story from years ago. I had just taken over as the plant manager of a plant in Miami, Florida. It was a dairy bottling plant. We bottled milk, okay? And anybody ever seen the half-gallon cartons? Well, that machine spits them out. Okay, and what it does, it takes a blanket and forms it, heats it, and closes it, puts the milk in it, and then seals the top. Everybody got it? Now, if it doesn't seal the top, it's a mess. And this is very subtle, okay? If the milk is too warm, it foams and creates foam inside where it's going to seal, and you get leakers. Okay? So we had leakers. And I had a salesman, I was running the plant, I had a sales manager on my team. You gotta stop it, you asshole! Excuse me. But that's what he said. So the whole thing was anger. And the reaction was, oh my God, you've done it to me. And I remember feeling guilty. Okay? Now, did we finally get it straightened out? Yes. But until we changed, I changed my thinking because I had people beat me over the head and jerk. Okay, and for some reason that's what I go back to. When that was a typical crisis that made worse by what I was thinking, my guilt, my upset. Okay? And I was brand new. Can you imagine a new manager? And everybody's angry at them. So that's how we react. Now, who did I blame? Well, the mechanic. They messed up the machine. And they should have had it. You know, do you see how we blame? Okay. Now, but you have things in your life. And I don't know why that one came back. That's out of nowhere. But we all have those circumstances in our lives. So let's get back to it again. What I think it is, I create. As a person, as a man, think of his heart, so it's...
That is so annoying.
I know. Yes.
I wanted to share something. I was feeling a little shy, but yesterday I was talking to my daughter, my oldest daughter, and she said, "Mom, I saw this thing on TikTok where people just say," she's very spiritually astute. She said, "People say, isn't it wonderful?" And they just repeat that throughout the day. Isn't it wonderful? And then you see what's manifesting. You see what it's manifesting. So I said, "Oh, I'm going to do that. Let's do it today." So I started out in the morning. Isn't it wonderful? Oh, isn't it wonderful? And then I thought, oh, I'm really hungry. I got to get out of my house. I'm going to go have some breakfast. So I went and had breakfast, sat down, ordered my thing. I'm allergic to tomatoes. So I said, no tomatoes. Well, it comes with tomatoes, right? So I get my meal, it's got tomatoes in it. I'm sorry, I have to return this because it's got tomatoes. I get it again, it's got tomatoes. The manager comes up to me and says, "I'm so sorry, they made it again. We're going to give you your meal free." And so they brought it again, and it was fine. So I got a free breakfast, and with my since I had not spent money on breakfast, of course I gave a tip to the wonderful waitress, but I walked across the parking lot and went to Barnes & Noble and bought Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo, which she had also been telling me, "Mom, you have to read this book." So I thought, wow, isn't it wonderful? I got a free breakfast and a great book just because of my thinking that
It's wonderful.
it's wonderful.
Yeah.
And, we can just totally shift our mind by...
Part of the key was not getting upset about that.
Right, because it was all part of the plan.
Yeah.
See, again, what happens is the brain goes into convulsions. It does, and we can let it go. Because the fruits of the Spirit are peace, love, and joy, not anger, not convulsions. Yes.
I think it's very interesting that the energy that Serene started the day with, very deliberately, was positive energy. Because I think it's so easy when you're not aware of your energy, how things can go sideways. Because I wonder, if you had not started out in positive energy, when you got that meal twice that was incorrect, would you have been able to just be totally okay with it? Or would you have been a little irritated or a little like, oh, this shouldn't be? But I think how it's our responsibility to be in a really great space, because that stuff's gonna happen, right? Stuff's gonna happen because we're on this planet.
We're in it.
We're in it. And, but if you're in a really good space, then the minor irritations, like you talk about the people cutting you off, it just doesn't even affect you. It's almost like not even in your consciousness to be upset.
Thank you. Now we're going to go back to another idea. Doing the work. This stuff does not happen because you're pretty or you're a certain age, or you've gotten a light, or the heavens have opened up for you. It happens because of the transformation of the mind. And it occurs because you decided to do the work. Everybody's work is different. I was talking about RJ doing the work. RJ does the work totally different than I do. Part of my thing is 6 o'clock in the morning, we do a meditation, pray half an hour. Okay, and the folks that like that were there. Now, that's part of my work, but it's not necessarily part of your work. But it's actually scripting every day, taking whatever time you need. Generally, most spiritual teachers throughout the years say 20 minutes of meditation, beneficial morning and evening. Now, morning and not late at night, but like evening, 4 or 5 o'clock. Now, why? Tradition. Does it matter? In my world, no, but it's doing something every day. Is reading a book, yes.
It's really interesting. I'm working with my yoga teacher. She's helping me do some Ayurvedic things, and she talks about how important it is to not eat after a certain point, and how important it is to be in bed. Because like at 11 o'clock, your body starts the processes that it needs to do to heal and digest and eliminate. And it's like there's just these things. We're designed a certain way. We have this magical energy that runs us, right? We have this intelligent system that totally runs this body that we're not even usually aware of what that intelligence is doing. So part of the work is being in harmony with this beautiful physical system that was put here to help us to do really great things.
Okay. See, now those are things we're going forward in the future. And stop and think about this. If you are part of God and God created each of us, why would God create something that wasn't perfect and had the capabilities of living a life in a wonderful way? Okay, so it's all there. We have just forgotten about it. We have lost it. And it's getting back into harmony and the synchronicity of the energy of spirit. And those energies, when they get together, they harmonize and create a new environment. RJ will tell you that you can take sound and mix it and come up with different sounds. Okay? And you can overlay frequency after frequency after frequency. Very subtle. And these subtle energies are extremely amazing, and they all vary based upon our thinking. So right now, in this room, all of our energies are combining and creating an outcome, whatever that outcome is. Okay? So, like Grace just said, they group controlled the Cotton baseball game. Yes? Now, if they can do that, what can we do? And it's really making the defined effort. This is what I'm going to do every day. And subject to further enlightenment, by the way, because things do change. I learn about another frequency. I learn about another idea. But I commit to it every day. You know, Mal and I are involved in martial arts for a way. The only way a martial artist can do those crazy things is day after day. It takes them 10, 15 years to become adept at what they do by learning to do it over and over and over again. And what do we have to do? Become spirit again. Like Jesus said, these things I do, you shall do even greater things. That's a promise. It's rooted right there in there's only one power, one presence in the universe. And if anything else happens, oops, I need to start over again. So I really, there's all kinds of stuff we could talk about, but it's really basic. Now, the next step is, next week, the first, go back to the 5 principles, please. There they are. There's only one power, one breath. That's today, okay? next week, our essence is of God. Therefore, we are inherently good. The God essence was fully expressed in Jesus the Christ, and Jesus the Christ said, and these things I do, ye shall do in even greater things. Period. So who are we? And that's why we'll get involved in some of these, let's call them advanced ideas and energies, okay? Which is what a spiritual path is. And anybody agree? What is it? You know, if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. What are we? We're divinity. So believe it or not, if we are divinity, then we need to learn to quack like that, look like divinity, and act like divinity. And divinity, see, the key here is divinity believes that love is the answer. So the only answer that a divine person has is love, which is what we have to learn over and over and over again. Okay? So I love you. It really is time to go back to basics if you can understand that. And if you understand that the quantum physics is emphasizing and reinforcing all of this idea. If you're familiar with string theory says anything that has, any atom that has been associated with another atom, when you disassociate them, no matter what, they interact. So they can be 100 miles apart, and if this one turns this way, this one turns this way. Stop and think about that. What kind of a universe are we living in that we are part of that conversation? So I love you dearly. The main thing I'm asking is please take it seriously. Please do the work. And the work is whatever works for you. Okay? And we can get more involved in that. Anybody have any comments? I have no idea what time it is. Yes?
Yeah, the Beatles sang about that.
Say it again.
All you need is love.
The Beatles, he said the Beatles.
It was interesting at the time when they were studying with that Indian.
Yes.
Which over in the Kriya Yoga and the Pranayama, that is ancient stuff, which now Joe Dispenza is turning into the modern world and making huge changes for people. Okay. By the way, you do need to look him up. All you need is DrJoeDispenza.com. Yes?
There's a message going on here.
Okay. I think we'll work some creative things over the next quarter. Madeline and I have been talking about what we're going to do. We've also talked about getting you involved. So, I don't know. Madeline wants me occasionally to stop, take a day off. And so maybe we'll be asking some of you getting back into that rotation once a month. Anybody up for that?
I think it's a very good idea. You take a time off.
Well, it's a conversation that the Father within, He doeth the work. The Father within, everybody does the work. And so when you get at a point where you're ready to relate, it's important to get that out. So we need to provide that venue. Okay?
I'll get the basket.
Thanks, Randy.
Thank you. Bye.